call the Monday, October 17, 2022 Township meeting to order. Please rise for the flag salute. Ms. Hopkins, if you would.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law by posting a notice of this meeting on the bulletin board in the Municipal building and by faxing notice of the meeting to the Atlantic City Press, Star Ledger, Camden Courier, and Atlantic County Record on January the 7th, 2022. Mr. Cheek?
Here.
Ms. Hopkins?
Here.
Mrs. Link?
Here.
Mr. Patali?
Here.
Mayor Kane?
Yes. All right, I'd ask that you join me in a moment of silence for private reflection, please. All right, we have a guest presentation. We're going to take that right after we do the proclamation. So could I get my hockey players, please?
I like the uniforms.
All right, this evening we are going to be honoring several of our youth from the U.S. Ball Hockey Championship. And this proclamation goes on to say, whereas U.S. Ball Hockey and the Canadian Ball Hockey Association sponsored a Future Stars Invitational Tournament for young athletes from all over the country on August 26 through 28, 2022 in Buffalo, New York. And whereas the Township of Hamilton was strongly represented at this elite tournament by 3 athletes from our community, who are all students at the William Davies Middle School: Bridget Gurrier, Angelina Ramos for the Team New Jersey 12U girls, and Colton Garina for the Team New Jersey 13U boys. Whereas 12U girls team won the championship in their first ever appearance at the tournament, winning 3 shutout games, 1-0, 3-0, and 1-0, therefore qualifying for the playoffs, beating Team New York 2-0 in the semifinals. Fantastic.
Great.
They then went on defeating Team Pennsylvania 1-0 in a game that ended in a 12-round shootout to bring home the championship. And whereas the 13U boys team held each of their opponents to a single goal in the first 4 games with scores of 5-1, 5-1, 4-1, and 3-1. And then defeated Team Pennsylvania in the finals with a score of 6-3 to win the championship with the New Jersey team for the first time in history for this tournament. Now, therefore, we, the Township Committee of the Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic, State of New Jersey, on this day, October 17, 2022, do hereby recognize Bridget Gurrier, Angelina Ramos, Team New Jersey 12U girls ball hockey, and Colton Garina, Team New Jersey 13U boys ball hockey. In honor of their remarkable accomplishments, the achievement is not only a credit to the hard work and dedication of these athletes, but it's a credit to the support they receive from their families, friends, coaches, and teammates. We congratulate Ms. Gurrier, Ms. Ramos, and Mr. Garina, and wish them the best of luck for many years to come.
Good job. Good job, kids.
Folks, this is our youth. This is what we have to look forward to. Great job. Thank
Great
you.
job.
Sure.
Guys, go back for a picture. That mic is right in your face. Thank you, Mel.
Okay, that's who I thought it was. She would. She would.
It's always a pleasure when we can start out a meeting celebrating our youth like that. So they are the future of our township. All right, next we're going to move on to some more good news. We are going to start with a guest presentation from Mr. Day. This is regarding our landfill. Mr. Day, the floor is yours.
Not much presentation, just dropping off the application to the solid waste application. I dropped off a nice package for each of the members of the committee there. Good light reading for your insomnia. Administrator's going to sign that if the resolution passes tonight, and that would be the first step and the end of the process here to get the construction approval. As you know, we're in the process of finalizing the grant that was issued for the construction with the closure, and we're cautiously optimistic we can get through the DEP and final approval process and start that first thing in the spring. So that's basically all I have, and I'm here to answer any questions about where we are or the project or anything anybody has.
Jeff, I'd just first like to start out by thanking you. When Richard and I on the Finance Committee reached out to you, you were extremely receptive. You came in, we had meetings, and we got us to this point. I really appreciate that. And hopefully now we're looking at maybe next summer, the township will no longer own the landfill?
Probably a little bit past the end of next summer, but we got to get through the closure process is about 6 months. So let's say optimistically we'll start at the end of March. It'll be done at end of the summer. Then the solar construction, certifications, and all that, and then we could transfer again. So probably realistically 2024.
And it's only taken how many years?
Yeah, right. That process.
But listen, we're at the end. We're at the finish line
We was in
now.
high school when we started this, I guess.
Yes. Thank you.
First tour on campus.
Any questions with this great news?
Is there more of a possibility of passing the Pine Lands with this closure?
Yeah, no, Pinelands, yes, we're involved in the process now. They're reviewing the data, and hopefully it doesn't take so long. But
Beautiful. I know it's been a,
the Pinelands is always a wild card on timing, so we'll see how that goes. But they've been prepared. They've been involved in the beginning during the investigation process, and it's a
Beautiful.
relatively clean situation under the landfill here. So we're cautiously optimistic that we'll move through their process as quickly as possible. So.
excellent.
Jeff, I sincerely thank you, and I look forward to working with you through the finishing up this process. So
Yes.
thank you for being so receptive, getting on a timeline, and getting things accomplished. We appreciate it.
Same here, Mayor. Appreciate that and support of the committee, and good working with Joe and Aaron, and
And
look forward to getting, and the solicitor, of course, who's important with the process. So
how many years have you been working on this project?
I think we started talking about it, I think, in 2009.
Yeah.
I think we got out there in 10 and 11 with the investigation and completed all the investigations the DEP wanted by 2014. And we've kind of been in a little bit of a holding pattern, waiting on some things, and the funding and the grant was really the thing that kicked us into gear when they agreed to award that middle of this year. So
Beautiful. Diligence, thank you.
Committee, any other questions? Jeff, thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to addition, deletion of late agenda items. I believe we have none this evening, correct? Correct? All right, we'll move on to early public comment, please.
I asked Jeff to stay for obvious reasons because my questions are dealing with the landfill. And as Mr. Sandman will remember, and Judy, you probably remember, we had 3 meetings in 2013 on this topic. And the topics then, Jeff, and I can't think of his name with the glasses that snapped together, that's not with Land Resources anymore. Trevin Hauser? That's it. There was a solar farm proposed, plus there was another not nice use that was proposed. Is that completely off? That was a garbage to steam plant.
Yes, we're just looking at solar at this point.
So only solar is what he's saying, so everybody else can hear.
Let me
Come-
position that. We may need solar and maybe some battery storage. So renewable energy is the use that we're looking towards.
Regarding the status of the grid, because this is a proposed solar farm, there's a solar farm proposed on the D'Imperio dump site, and then and we already have in the industrial park, industrial park, on the courthouses and I believe special services school, they all have their own solar panels, so are we in the loop here with the grid is going to be acceptable, that they can receive what you want to generate?
Yes, we did an interconnection study about 3 years ago, and actually our solar developer, Citizens Energy, had a signed agreement with Special Services School and ACIT.
They couldn't wait.
And
We
I'm not
picking him up?
picking him up.
Excuse me,
Yeah,
Jeff,
yes.
we're not picking you up. Jeff, why don't you come up and sit at the table with our administrator, please? Thank you, Ms. Gino.
sorry about that, I wasn't on the mic there.
If you could just repeat the part about maybe solar, maybe battery, then I...
Sure, yeah, we had talked about the possibility of an organic food waste recycling operation. That's not under consideration anymore. There's not enough space for that, number one, and that developer or that business isn't around either. So we're primarily looking at just solar. We may be some opportunity for battery storage. That's possibly associated with the offshore wind and all the upgrades to the grid that are happening associated with that. But that's really what our development plan is at this point. And
Is there an expectation, and the money was the question I really was intending to come up here, I didn't know Jeff would be here. Is there an expectation, we taxpayers are going to have to put any money up on anything to do with the landfill at this point in time?
no, other than the township is a facilitator for the grant, so the grant would come, it's a flow-through grant, which is what's in the redevelopment agreement. We're obviously looking at other grants, and so right now, it's a 75% for eligible costs grant through the Hazardous Discharge Site Remediation Fund, HDSRF, and that's what I was saying, we were waiting on that. That's in the process of going through the approval with the EDA. We hope that that's on the November EDA board agenda meeting for final approval, and then the grant documents will come out. That's a $3 million grant. There'll be a supplemental grant to them as well in 2023 for the balance of the costs, which is roughly a balance of the other 75%, and then the redeveloper is providing the other funding and financing for it. So
it's not expected we're going to have to
no, is
pay?
the answer to your question, correct. Yeah.
All right, because we did have $50,000 in a 2002 bond that was canceled in August of 2020 and sent into surplus. So with other things going on in this town financially, I don't want to see us have to suddenly be borrowing money for this. So it's looking good at this point.
Not being here with my own solicitor, but our redevelopment agreement clearly says that the township's not putting any money toward the closure of the landfill or the redevelopment.
Is it a recent agreement?
No, but it's still effective.
Okay.
And so we would have to come before council and committee again if we ever wanted any money, and that's not part of the plan, so.
I know that when he got up at that meeting, and I think it was July 25th of 2013, he looked at the participants at the meeting, which was Gordon Craig, and I think Pritchard was there, and Trevin was there. Trevin, like he's sitting here. You were there, Judy and I were there, and maybe one or two others, Industrial Commission, Jack Carson, and this man said in July of 13, he said that's the most he's ever learned about the landfill in the entire time that he's been the solicitor. So hopefully this is going to come to conclusion. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Jeff, thank you very much, and we'll look forward to working with you further to get this finished.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to 3, discussion, formal actions may be taken. A, resolution authorizing the submission of an application for the Township of Hamilton landfill closure and post-closure plan to the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. Joe? I mean, it's quite self-explanatory, but
Yes.
just for the
so
committee's
this-
purpose.
So this application will allow the township to submit for the closure application to the DEP this week. So your authorization will allow me to sign it, and we'll be putting it in the mail to the DEP effectively tomorrow.
Let's vote on this as quick as we can, Ms. Martina.
Okay.
Committee, what's your pleasure?
Motion.
Motion?
So moved?
I have a motion and a second. Rita, could I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Patali?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
I'm very happy to see this finally come to a successful conclusion, and I look forward to working with you, Jeff. Thank you.
All yes and carrying.
All right, we'll move on to 4, public hearing, adoption of ordinance First, we have A, ordinance 2014-2022. This is a bond ordinance appropriating $900,000 and authorizing the issue of $850,000 in bonds or notes of the Township of Hamilton for capital improvement purposes, authorized to be undertaken by the Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic, New Jersey. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak on this matter? Hearing, nope. Ms. Dix?
I waited to see if anybody else wanted to speak. Aline Dix. I object to borrowing any more money by this township government until we see where we stand with the budget for next year, but more importantly, I just commented that you canceled in 2020 on Resolution 0303, $197,945.18 and sent it to capital surplus. That would be borrowed money going to capital surplus. Again, a year later, 2021, in Resolution 0139, I've spent exhaustive hours in the last 2 weeks trying to find the fire department's money. So that's where this is coming from. You canceled $470,000 in, I believe that was August of 2020, if I'm wrong, August of 2021, clearly in 2021. Of the canceled money, 2015, 16, 17, and 18 were dam improvement money, and that's a dam with a DAM, Larita, when you pick that up, it's DAM. The dam money, $348,772.53 went to capital surplus, and then fire department, public safety equipment, fire department radios, 2017, 2018, and turnout gear in 2020 for a total of $86,468.52. That total resolution, 0139 in 2021, was $470,000 that went to capital surplus. You appropriated in the one budget, 2021, $400,000 from capital surplus as a budget revenue, along with the COVID money of $1.1 million. So that filled up $1.5 million budget hole by using capital surplus and the COVID money in 2021. This year, you've used $1.5 million of COVID money in 2022. Either one of those could have been appropriated and you could have ordered a fire truck, but you didn't. You just plugged up the budget. Thank you. I object to borrowing any more money.
Okay, Ms. Dix, you do understand that if we didn't take that money and plug the budget, as you state, and I have to have your facts checked, but if we didn't do that, it would have resulted in a tax increase on the residents of this town, which was unacceptable coming out of a pandemic. It was not going to happen. It did not happen, and I'm committed. It will not happen again. We need to recover from this pandemic as a team, as a community, and we will do that. Thank you. Mr. Kerrigan.
Jimmy, I'm sorry.
Ms. Dix. Ms. Dix.
You are giving us, you're
Ms.
giving
Dix,
us
Mr. Kerrigan is at the microphone.
$250,000 a year
Ms.
out of
Dix,
the MUA's
would
ratepayers so you
please
can avoid a
allow-
tax
Ms.
increase.
Dix,
Well, my
the same
ratepayers are
250 that you
raising,
lied about, Ms. Dix?
excuse me?
The same 250 that you lied about and misrepresented in this room and then went to the MUA 2 days later and said that you knew about the 250 when you were on Township Committee. You knew it when you were on committee, and you told Mr. Tomasello in a public meeting, I knew it when I was sitting in your chair. That's what you said. 2 days earlier, you sat here and you told this committee, you said it on the record, I know nothing about that 250, they didn't give me any information. You moved 2 days later at the MUA and you said, I knew about it, I approved it, and I knew it when I was sitting in your chair. That's what you said.
I hardly think
lied,
what
Ms.
you're
Dix,
saying
so
is
please
true.
sit down and let Mr.
I
Kerrigan speak.
hardly think what you're saying is
Please
true.
let Mr.
The
Kerrigan
ratepayers
speak.
shouldn't be getting rate hikes so you can avoid a tax
You know
increase
that's
of a
not the
penny
case.
or
Again,
two.
you're
Mr.
spewing
Mayor,
misinformation.
point of order, please.
Please, Mr. Kerrigan, you have the floor. Would you please speak?
Yes, what we need to do is pay as you go, you know,
We agree, Jim.
because that was my idea when I served on the fiscal vitality.
You attended all those SWAT meetings, Jim, and we appreciate that. And it was born of that idea, and at some point, it went by the wayside. We are looking to make sure it gets resurrected now that we're pandemic, and the tail end of the pandemic, to make sure it gets resurrected so we don't find ourselves in this situation again. So thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Link.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Committee, Jim Link, 676 Park Road and 763 Park Road. I agree with Aileen, okay? And in the 20 years that I've been doing politics here, that's rare. And I mean, no offense, and you're absolutely right. In any case, what I need to know is because there's something missing from this particular agenda that was on the agenda for last meeting, and the meeting before that, I believe, was something to do with purchasing a building on Main Street in
Absolutely,
town.
Mr. Link, yes.
Now, I don't see that here. I'm wondering, what does capital improvements, okay, mean in that particular ordinance? I would just vote against it because there's no enumeration. So could you enumerate?
Mr. Lake, I think that you'll find after we hold this public hearing, I think you're going to find that there's going to be support for just what you said. I think this ordinance here will be tabled, shot down, turned down, and then we are going to address the needs further on in the agenda.
Okay, not having a crystal ball, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You, yes. Mr. Rogers, you wanted to speak?
Your last comment, I'll be 85.
Thank you. Again, public hearing, is there anyone else in the public that wishes to speak on this matter? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public portion, please.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Vitale,
Second.
second by Ms. Hopkins. Committee, I think you've been apprised of what's coming further in the agenda. I would entertain a motion. Bob, how should we vote on this?
You got a motion and a second on the
Yes.
floor to close. You got to vote on that first.
You have to vote on.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, committee, we've had quite a bit of discussion on this. We know that there's an ordinance being represented down below this. This particular ordinance, we should shoot down. But it's up to the committee's pleasure of how you want to handle this. So if there's additional discussion, if not, I'll entertain a motion either for approving this ordinance or saying no to this ordinance.
I make a motion that we vote and let the yeas and the nays take it.
Right.
Can we do that?
We do it in that manner, Mr.?
You're making a motion in the affirmative?
Oh, I'm making a motion that we vote whether we want yes or no.
The ordinance.
What is your motion?
That you turn it down.
Oh, the motion to turn it down, okay.
Well, that you have to vote.
Ms.
Don't you have to vote on that?
Ms. Martinez, that
I
suffice
don't
for
know how to
you?
process it. It's a motion to approve and a
Okay.
second, and then we'll vote it down.
Okay,
That's what I was,
so your motion to approve,
motion
Wait,
to
I'm
approve.
asking, yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good,
we
Rita,
vote.
thank you.
Motion to adopt ordinance.
All right, so I'll motion to approve the ordinance, or to adopt the ordinance,
and I'll second.
okay?
Thank you.
Motion, second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
No.
Ms. Hopkins?
No.
Mrs. Link?
No.
Mr. Vitale?
No.
Mayor Kane?
No.
The
All
ordinance
right,
is
we'll move
defeated.
on to B. This is ordinance 2015-2022, an ordinance to amend Chapter 235 of the Township Code entitled Processions, Parades, and Public Assemblies. We had much discussion on this last week. The chief's testimony was this only affects teams that are coming from out of town, and it addresses their fees. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak on this matter? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public portion.
So moved.
I have a motion by Ms. Link,
Second.
second by Mr. Vitale. Rita, committee, any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion?
I have a motion by Mr. Cheek,
Second.
a second by Ms. Hopkins. Rita, could I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted.
Now we will move on to introduction of ordinance. The public hearing for this ordinance will be held November 14th, 2022. This is ordinance 2016-2022, bond ordinance appropriating $1,300,000 and authorizing the issuance of $1,235,000 in bonds or notes of the Township of Hamilton for the purchase of fire apparatus authorized to be undertaken by the Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic, State of New Jersey. Committee, questions, comments? What's your pleasure?
Is it public comment?
No, it's a public hearing to be held on November 14th, 2022.
I'll motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Cheek.
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Vitale. Rita, would you roll call, please?
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
I agree with Sticks with what you said, but if my house were on fire, I'd want to know we got a fire truck coming. So I'm voting yes on this.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
All yes and introduced.
All right, so we'll move on to 6, awards of bids, contracts / change orders. The first one we have is 6A, which is a resolution approving change order number 1 for cooperative fleet maintenance and management services bid 2021-04, contract amount increase of $2,303.86. Committee, questions, comments?
Motion?
I have a motion by Mr. Cheek,
Second.
a second by Ms. Hopkins. Rita?
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
All right, we'll move on to 6B, resolution approving change order number 2 for the 3rd Street 2021 Municipal Aid Program, bid 2021-07, contract amount increase of $18,925.71.
Question?
Please?
Joe, do you feel as if this is the last change order for that
Yes,
particular
this is
job?
actually final, this is actually the balance of all the quantities, the asphalt adjustments, everything included.
Okay, but this will be the final change?
Yeah, after all, it's about a 5%
Yeah,
increase, something like
yeah,
that.
no problem. Okay.
Yep. The next bill they'll get was when they get their maintenance bond in place and then final payment, but no more change
Final
orders.
payment, retainage? Okay. I'll motion.
I have a motion.
I'll second.
Second. Rita, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes, I did review this, and I feel as though it's justified. My answer is yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
We'll move on to C, resolution awarding contract for Public Works pole barn concrete slab, bid 2022-02 to AJR Masonry LLC for an amount not to exceed $125,600. And I believe the difference is $15,000. Committee? Questions, comments? Motion, please.
No, I'm glad to see this finally happening so that the pole barn will be done.
Usable?
And so I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Vitale.
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Lee. The roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes. We'll move on to D, award for first-year extension of bid 2021-10, tree and stump removal and tree trimming to Rich Tree Service, Inc. of South Plainfield, New Jersey, for a not-to-exceed amount of $10,000 for the period of 1/1/2023 to 12/31/2023.
So moved.
Motion?
Second.
Second. Rita, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Moving along, E, resolution to award bid 2022-10 plumbing service to Northeast Services, Williamtown, New Jersey, for a not-to-exceed amount of $5,000 effective January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023. Committee?
So moved.
Motion?
Second.
Second? Rita, roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Abstain.
Ms. Hopkins?
Pass.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
4
Aye.
yes, 1 abstention, motion carries.
We'll move on to F, resolution to award bid 2022-09 HVAC services to Peterson Service Company, Medford, New Jersey, in the amount not to exceed $95,198, effective January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023.
So moved.
Motion? I have a motion by Mr. Vitale.
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Link. Rita, could I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Cheek?
Abstain.
Ms. Hopkins?
I'm going to pass.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 abstention, motion carries.
All right. G, resolution authorizing the first extension for janitorial services bid 2021-11 to Offshore Carpet Cleaning LLC, Linwood, New Jersey, in the amount not to exceed $46,169. Committee, you need any background other than what's in your packet? If
Is this bid out? It was bid? Okay, I'll motion.
Second.
Motion second. Rita, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor King?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
All right, we have Resolution H, resolution authorizing a first-year extension for electrical repair, maintenance, and services bid 2025-05A to Northeast Electrical Services, Williamstown, New Jersey, in an amount not to exceed $10,000, January 1 through December 31, 2023.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Vitale.
Second.
Second, Mrs. Link. Rita, roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Abstain.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor King?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 abstention, motion carries.
All right, we got something different. Reject bid 2022-08, electronic payment services. I believe it was for the fact that no bids were received.
So moved.
I got a motion by Ms. Hopkins,
Second.
second by Mrs. Link. Read a roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor King?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
All right. Last one, J, resolution awarding bid 2022-11, 2022 road program to Arawak Paving Company, Inc., in the amount not to exceed $337,900. And folks, this gets Franklin Drive, Linden Avenue, Prague Avenue, Pontiac Avenue, and Tunney Avenue paid, hopefully in the very, very near future.
I'll motion.
We have a motion, second. Read a roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
I abstain.
Mayor King?
Yes, this is one part of it. The remainder of the $1,070,000 is in process also, so I vote yes.
4 yes, 1 abstention, motion carries.
All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have items 7A through 7G. Let's just, I'd like to remove G just to make, so we have a comment on it, please. Is there anyone else that would like to have anything moved? If not, I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda, please.
C.
Items A through F, Ms. Link.
Okay.
Motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Cheek,
Second.
second by Ms. Hopkins. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, G, I just wanted to point out, G, as we know, is the resolution supporting the submission of application for the New Jersey Department of Transportation, Transportation Alternative Set-Aside Program 2023. Folks, this is for the Bikeway project that Mr. Vitale and Deputy Mayor Cheek are spearheading. This is the first step in it, and once this gets approved, we can start moving forward with that project.
Is that grant money that is going to come in for that?
Yes. That's what the purpose of it. Would you like to add anything, Ms. Crean?
Oh, sorry. It's a up to $1.5 million grant for the design and construction, or for the construction, and as well as we are eligible to get design assistance from the DOT as well with this grant application.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And do we have to pay, we're going to get that from the DOT?
Yes, the application is due on November 3rd. So,
Okay, you got to get that in.
Any other additional questions or comments? Very exciting to see this happen. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I didn't have
Ayes
a
have it.
motion or a second on that.
I got a motion, please?
So moved.
I have a
Second.
motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, ayes have it. We'll move on to 8, personnel. Resolution appointing Linda Benner, Historic Preservation Commission Class C member to fill unexpired term 12/31/22.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second?
Second. Rita, roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
All right, next we'll move on to B. This is a resolution approving Captain, I still call him Lieutenant, Captain Anthony Alcott's employment agreement.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second?
Second. Rita, roll call, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
I think Anthony does an amazing job, and he's been doing the duties, and now he's getting formally recognized with it, so yes. C, resolution
Motion carried.
C, resolution to correct hourly rate for part-time communications officer Kevin Chapman from $16.56 an hour to $16.93 an hour for the period of 1/8/2021 through 12/31/2021, from $16.93 to $17.27 per hour for the period of 1/1/22 through present. Committee, questions, comments? If none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion?
Motion?
Second?
Motion by Mr. Cheek, second by Mrs. Link. Rita, could we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
We'll move on to approval. Minutes. Regular meeting minutes of December 3rd, 2022, please.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second?
I have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next, we'll move on to B, bill list. Bill list total, I have to take my glasses off for this one, $9,176,575.13. We gotta pay the bills,
Come on,
folks.
Carl, come on, Carl.
We gotta pay the bills.
All right.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mrs. Link, second by Mr. Cheek. Rita will definitely take a roll call on that, please.
Mr. Cheek?
Yes.
Ms. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Mayor Kane?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
All right, we'll move on to reports. Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. The architectural plans for the Leapy Field House, in addition to the food establishment plan, have been submitted by our town engineer to the Atlantic County Health Department, so thank you. Sorry if I'm taking your report, sir. Bidding will follow contingent upon the AC Health Department, hope for groundbreaking end of the year. The township received landship closure plan for township committee consideration and was approved, and we'll be submitting that this week to the DEP. The township will be meeting also with representatives of the fire department's fire truck committee to review specifications for the purchase of a new fire truck. Also, the township will be setting up meetings with fire company chiefs and representatives to further discuss consolidation plans and receive feedback and community buy-in as we started the process. Additionally, the township continue to encourage volunteer and first responder agencies to partner with community events to introduce more volunteerism to the community. And administration, we're working with departments for customer service preparation and implementation in the new year, including the coordination of multiple online forms, permits, and new resident and new business information packets.
Fantastic.
Thank you, sir.
Committee, any questions of the administrator? Hearing none. Mr. Solicitor.
Nothing to report.
Committee, any questions of the solicitor? Hearing none. Mr. Engineer.
Mr. Mayor, nothing, unless there's any questions from anybody.
And things must be working if you're not reporting anything, so thank you.
Keep them moving.
And we'll move on to township committee members. Mrs. Link, please.
I would like to say I had the opportunity to go over to Mannheim Avenue and go through the area proposed for Trophy Park. And it was very enlightening since I was a biology teacher for a number of years and really liked the experience going through that wooded area and seeing what vegetation was there, what happened there as far as the three plane accidents that happened when going over that area. And I think we will have a lot of work to do, or a lot of considerations before we actually follow through with this project. I'd like to find out what the Pinelands says. I did make a list of how many endangered plant species there are, and if I'm not mistaken, I would think that there are some of them in there. Also, I questioned my granddaughter about this, and she says, what, they want to take down trees? We have enough homes in this area. This was an 11-year-old. So I agree with her, and, I have to keep an open mind, but there's a lot of considerations, especially when it comes to the buffers. When you put something like this in an area that's residential, the buffers have to be substantial. Now, so that it will not have any impact or negative impact on the existing residents. And through our planning board and through our close attention, we want to see what that tends to be. So there's a lot of questions that I have, and I just wanted to mention that one. It has to have zero impact on the residents of that area. Thank you.
Mr. Patali, if you would. I also took a walk out there, met with the residents out there. Now I know where Plane Crash Road is, and I will never forget that. So it was a very interesting walk. I appreciate that. It's good to get out there and see what it is that they're concerned about. A couple of things I want to remind people of. Ghost Walk is this week, I think Friday night. It's presented by the Hamilton Historical Society. You got to get your tickets ahead of time. I don't know if there's any tickets left. I'm looking to see if anybody. I think they're sold out. I think they may be sold out. So, Fall Fest is Saturday at War Memorial Park. Arts, crafts, come on down. Hopefully we have some good weather. Be down there. And I attended a fundraiser for a local resident, Kathy Will, who has pancreatic cancer. And it was at Cologne Firehouse Saturday, and it was amazing how many people showed up there. It was incredible, and it's nice to see how the community comes together to help out somebody. And so if you can, there's a GoFundMe account for her. She's got a long road ahead of her. She works for the county. She works over at Lenape Park West. She's the person that gives everybody their boat passes for the year. She's super friendly. I hear nothing but great things about her. And so if there's anything you can do, go on social media, you can find it. And her name's Kathy Will. And that's really all I have to say. Reagan, Maddie, miss you, love you, hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Carl.
May I add just something? I spoke to Bill Wills, and it's his daughter-in-law who is suffering from pancreatic cancer. And he asked that everyone put in their prayers, because prayers really help. And I certainly agreed to do, and I hope everyone here does the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hopkins.
The Trophy Park issue has burned a lot of energy from the town, and there's a lot of discussion. And when I step back and I look at the process for how we got to where we are today, somewhere in another committee time, they thought it would be very prudent to put all of Hamilton Township under a redevelopment. And at the time, they were hoping to increase money for ratables that would eventually lower the taxes. So the plan of the committee at the time was correct for where they were, and that was several years ago. But we find that Trophy Park is one of the victims. It's pristine land that probably should have never come out of that jurisdiction. And so as we continue to go through that process, and to Judy's point, I think we really should maybe take a look at the planning and the zoning and go back to that redevelopment area. And maybe are there other tracts of pristine land that we could pull out and save the town some anxiety for going through it in the future? And I would just like to suggest that. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cheek.
As well as Carl, I was at the benefit for Kathy, and that, it was unbelievable, the amount of residents that came together. You couldn't get a parking spot across the street, next to it, anywhere. It was unbelievable. And it just shows what kind of community we have. And leading into that, tonight was another proclamation for kids. 3-4 meetings in a row, it's always been a different set of kids for their accomplishments, and what a great sign that is. And now we're moving forward with Lenape Park, or Lenape ball fields and whatnot, and it just shows how we're moving forward. And I have to thank everyone for that. And then it was an excellent weekend for the Philadelphia sport fans.
Yes, it was. All the way around.
Yeah, and that's all I have to say. 6-0.
There you go. Amen. Thank you. I was in the house last night, and it was playoff game atmosphere. It was playoff game exciting. The entire section, lower section, did not sit down until the halftime show, and then they stood up again for the rest of the game until the exit. So it was definitely playoff excitement, and it was great to see. 6-0, that's amazing. So, a couple things. One, we did receive an update on our Leapy Fieldhouse. We're in process. When are we looking? When should we actually? Fantastic. So it's going out for bids. That process takes 30 days or so.
We have it out to bid for about 4 weeks.
And then we should, once we get it, we can authorize it and we can get that built.
That's correct.
There we go. So it's coming, folks. I apologize that it's taken long. It is frustrating at the speed municipal government moves, but this is something that we committed to, and you're getting your new bathrooms and field house out there. So it's exciting. And again, investing in our youth is one of the best things we can do. The mill complex, we did have more conversations this week. I believe we did receive the redevelopment agreement. Am I correct in that manner? We received the draft. We're working out the final language. Hopefully, we can have that on the next agenda, maybe. We're crossing our fingers, which will then get that process moving, and you should start seeing stuff happening at that complex. It's been a long time coming, but again, get people on timelines, and this is what happens. You get resolutions to it. The Duberson School, we touched on that the last meeting. The bank account's open. That's moving forward. That's an exciting thing. The LSV community. Chief, could you give us an update? I believe we received some updates, and I think, are we approved?
We are not approved yet.
Can you tell us how far along we are in the process?
We did get an unofficial approval, but we haven't gotten the actual paperwork. So until we get the paperwork.
Well, we get that about 2 weeks ago.
About a week ago, right, Jeff? So about a week ago, we got the unofficial word, so we're just waiting for the
Any idea when we're going to be able to say?
let's tell you at this meeting, but we haven't gotten it yet.
So we're right there, folks.
We're
That's
right
one
there. So
more
next-
part that goes along with the whole thing we're trying to do downtown and the entire community. So thank you, Chief. The mall, I had another conversation with the mall. We will be launching something this week regarding the mall. Please keep your eye out. It'll come out on the mayor's Facebook page. It's very exciting, and we need your input, so I'm looking forward to getting that released. I'm going to try to release it as soon as tomorrow morning. We're just finalizing some ideas with the mall. Brett, I just want to mention, Brett's in the room. I see him. He switched sides this evening. Brett, I had the opportunity to go out to MISPA. The rain garden looks amazing. Your group really did a beautiful job. My hat's off to you. And Brett, I really, the Second Street parking lot also looks fantastic, and thank you for the work that you and your guys do. Update on the court, we are waiting. Our expense numbers appear that they've come in with what was projected. We're very close. We are waiting on the final revenue numbers. I was on the phone today. We were hoping to have them for this evening for you. We do not have them yet, but we believe they're going to be a little bit better than expected, which means that it will be a substantial savings as we move forward, and as revenue increases with the court system, that gap should widen and hopefully help the township budget. And the last thing is the MUA sent out their notice. They are in the final steps. They will be moving into this building. And I want you to know what that means for you as ratepayers. What does it mean? It means that no longer are they considering a $3 million building, which would have affected the rates of the the ratepayers, but it means that they no longer have any bills related to running of the MUA, except their operating costs for employees and equipment. They will not have a rent factor, they will not have utility factor, they will not have building maintenance factor. That money goes back into the pockets of the ratepayers because it keeps their budget more stable. So I'm very excited about that. That move hopefully will be completed. They've started it, and we should have that fully done, I would hope, in the next week or two. So with that, I will open up to the public. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak, please?
He's a pro now.
Is there anything in the
Could you just, I apologize, could you just state your, please?
Sarah Avenue,
Thank you.
anything in the township rules about height-challenged people?
Duly noted. I'll have a box the next time. How's that?
I'm sure that these questions will come up in the due process with the Trophy Park
Sure.
proposal. But I'd like to bring them up just in case.
Please.
Is the Trophy Park LLC limited to the development of the proposed park?
Mr. Salmon, I don't really know how to answer that
Yeah,
one.
no, I would imagine the process has not gone
Right.
far enough. But if you do know the answers to any of these questions.
I understand. Thank you, please.
How many members are in this LLC?
That's not knowledge that we would have on how many members their LLC consists of. We would be dealing with the LLC, if it is, assuming it is an LLC, for the process, but we wouldn't know how many members were a part of that LLC.
That information would not be part of the normal review?
It hasn't in the past, yes.
It's available online.
It is, as Mr. Salmon said, it is available online if you want to look at that.
Did I bring up the question of, is this a single-purpose LLC? I think I did.
As much as I want to answer your question, I have no way to answer that.
But I have a question to his question, and actually for Aaron. Do we get a paragraph when folks come into the new development arena? Do they give us a paragraph on who they are and what they, like, is there like a little blurb that they give you at the beginning that would answer his questions?
When we move further along in the planning process and start negotiating the redevelopment agreement, we will have everything about the company, their financials, where the investors, everything.
So further into the process, we're going
Right.
to have the
It's,
information.
right now,
but
it's just
not
in the
initially.
infancy stages.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm sorry, sir.
What other LLCs or corporation is Mr. Now associated with? I would like to know that.
So that's really a First Amendment right? It's something we're probably not entitled to, unless they're involved directly in this particular project. And if they were, it's what Aaron said, it would be disclosed as the process goes forward.
How long has Mr. Now been in the development business and construction? How many projects has he completed? How many projects started but were not completed? And what exactly did the COVID pandemic, what specific causes of the pandemic did cause Mr. Now not to complete the Jackson Trophy Park project?
We can't go into Mr. Now's private business developments in another municipality. We can only deal with what's in front of us and what he's applying to us for. But if, as part of that process, is there a vetting process for the developer through redevelopment and those things? When we get to that process, that vetting will also be done.
Thank you.
You're
That's all I'm asking.
Thank you.
Mayor Kane, to this gentleman's point, to Richard's point, do we ask for a past performance when they come? Some kind of track record or something that says, I've done this before in this entity? When, as part of our due diligence, and do we ask that?
Part of the background, and their redevelopment agreement has their background and financials, and as part of that, yes, that package. We vet them as appropriate with part of the package.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
Good evening. My name is Diane Garvey, and I'm here on behalf of my mother. She's been a resident of Mays Landing for 46 years. Her name is Betty Siemens, and she lives at 6080 Birch Street. She would be here herself, but she is quite ill right now, so she has asked me to come on her behalf for this issue. My mother had a safety concern about boulders that her neighbors had on her property. It's my mother's understanding that the township owns from the middle of the street to 25 feet out on each side. When you live in a town like Laureldale, the streets are narrow, so a lot of times that goes into the street front of your property. These boulders are out at the end of the property, which makes it difficult for my parents to access their auxiliary driveway, which leads to the barn on their property. This driveway is the only way to get to that barn behind their house. My mother thought that there was a right-of-way and that those boulders were actually on township property because of this. She contacted a committee member at the end of April via Facebook to inquire about the situation. That member was kind enough to schedule a meeting with her. That member was Sue Hopkins. During this meeting, the F word was used multiple times, and she called another committee member a dick.
All right, well, I have to just hold you 1 second. I mean, this is third-party information here that we're receiving, and there's accusations. I just want to be really careful of the ground we're working on here, okay?
I understand
Please.
that, and there is other things, and I do have the screenshots from the messages that she sent to my mother, okay? I was shocked for someone to speak so unprofessionally to my mother and speak that way of another township committee person. Not to mention that language is completely inappropriate. My mother is an 85-year-old woman and does not speak like that. When she was contacted for an update, this was the beginning of September, and this is a quote, "Why don't you take pictures and post them on what's happening in Mays Landing's Facebook page? Maybe a little public shaming will get them to move faster. Our Public Works Director will be speaking to them. If they refuse to move the rocks, Hamilton Township will initiate the process of fining them. And in the days to follow, these are other messages. These rocks will be moved tomorrow. Any further issue you have, you must appear in a Hamilton Township committee meeting with pictures and present your case. We will have to add a person to the payroll in order to address your issues further due to the volume of complaints you have generated, which will result in an increase to your taxes. Please think about this before you complain again." She is not complaining. She was asking for some clarity as far as an ordinance or rules or regulations or whatever it is. She came to the township asking for that clarity and for what their thoughts were on it. Another message is, as a town of 27,000 residents, you use more resources on this issue than any other resident. We have jobs to do. We do not have time to have someone on speed dial for every one of your issues, and I suggest you put up cameras with sound. Put up trees to block your view, enjoy your life, and leave these folks in peace. In the 46 years my parents have lived here, I can count on one hand the amount of times they have come to the township to complain about anything. She was bringing up concerns. And in the end, it turns out that she was correct. Those rocks are in the right-of-way. They should be moved. There has been no fine. These residents are also the ones that I believe Aileen spoke about a few weeks ago, that have cut down probably 60 to 80 trees in a pinelands protected wetland zone that they are not supposed to be cut down. My mother brought that up too, and nothing has been done. Nobody's talking to them, nobody's doing anything.
If you recall, I tried to get out of Ms. Dix that evening what she was referring to. She would not tell me what she was referring to. I said, I can't help you unless I know what she's referring to. I had no idea what she was talking about. I asked multiple times, it's on tape, would you tell me what you're talking about?
Okay.
Okay.
If you have any questions, I can easily answer them, okay?
Yes.
And that is all that I'm saying, is that there are rules and regulations, codes, whatever they are. She's asking for them to be enforced, and that is it. Because as of today, as of Friday night when I was there, the rocks are still there. They're right up by the road, and if they get covered with snow and a snowplow goes by, they're not gonna know it's there.
Aaron, would you make sure that this gets properly handled through code enforcement in the manner in which it should be, please? And please work with Aaron if you have any issues. I'm mayor at Township of Hamilton. You will not. She's going to handle it for you. Please reach out to me. Give her a week or 2 weeks to see if she can move things forward. If not, please reach out and we'll follow up with you,
I will.
okay?
Thank you.
Now that we know what the situation is. Thank you. Anyone else in this public that wishes to speak? Ms. Hudson.
My name's Helen Hudson. I live in historic Mays Landing. My husband was going to speak tonight, but he's not feeling well, so I'm going to speak in behalf of myself and my husband. For many of you, and I'm trying to speak to the audience here too, because it's hard for me to hear back there, so I'm going to try to turn around. As many of you know who pay a monthly water and sewage bill to the HTMUA, our ratepayer-owned building, you're aware from Mr. Kane that it moved from Ken Skull Avenue to the Township building on 13th Street. My question is, after attending last Monday night's meeting at the MUA with its executive director and its commissioners, my husband asked them what will happen to their building, which, by the way, is a lovely building inside as well as outside, and it's a solid building. The commissioner said to ask our township committee. So I'm asking you tonight, do you plan to sell, rent, or tear down the MUA building, which is located in the historic area of Mays Landing, which has been assessed for $365,000 by our tax assessor? So I guess I'm asking, they probably know, but they referred me to all of you. So I'm asking tonight.
Ms. Hudson, I can answer those questions for you. One, first, a plan is being developed for that. There was discussions. That plan involves cooperation with Verizon. In the interim, just like many other things that take time, there is interest right now in possibly leasing it on a very short-term basis at the township's time schedule in order to house some storage that would exceed, the rent factor would exceed what taxes would have been collected on property like that as we work through the plan. There's an option. We haven't exercised that option yet. We're discussing it.
How can I find out more about your options and plans?
Well, as they continually evolve, they'll be released to the public. We have, with all due respect, you can't put the cart before the horse on every issue. You know, we're trying to get cooperation from Verizon. I think that building needs a facelift. I want to work with them in conjunction with doing that and reconfiguring both lands in order to help our downtown Mays Landing merchants. We're hoping that that's the process that can happen. So we're working with them to do that.
And I'm concerned because I live right next to,
I know you do.
and and I'm speaking in behalf of the neighbors. I'm not sure if, since it's a township building, if there's a variance that's needed to make changes to that building or just to leave it alone.
If you change the use, you would need a variance. If you change it from office space, you would need a variance. If you tried to turn it back to a residential home, you would need a variance for that. Right, at this point, because we're not far enough along, we had to get the deal done first. Now that we have the deal done, we can work on the process. All right?
Thank you.
And I believe you have my number. You can call me anytime and ask me anything about the project, okay?
All right,
I'd be
thank
more
you.
than happy to sit with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Anyone else in the public that wishes to speak? Mr. Fink.
Found this property bus up to Trophy Park. And the last meeting I had brought up about the plane crashes in the area.
Yes, sir.
I have a little diagram I'd like to pass out to you, so you have a better idea of what I'm talking about.
Sure, please.
Ladies first. Mary, you want one? Sure.
Mr. Fink, please.
Do you want one?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Thank you.
I was thinking of that song.
That's just very simple. This is a very simple diagram. This is taken with WPD radio station.
Mr. Fink, you gotta, I can't hear you. Thank
Very
you.
simple diagram. It's just showing the 3 X's are the homes that are abutting the Trophy Park.
That would be the blue X's?
The blue X's, yes. The red X's are the sites of the 3 fatal plane crashes that fall within Trophy Park. You can see the one is almost directly alongside of the proposed dormitories. One would have been in probably the dugout of the baseball field, and the other one is near the Welcome Center.
Mr. Fink, what were the years of the plane crashes? I'm just curious.
You have to find out on the FFA site. It's been in the past.
Is it 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? Do you know that?
I do not know that to be exact. I don't think it makes much of a difference.
She knows it.
Just a second.
Yeah, of course.
Piece of paper shows the plane crash as well. Sure.
Where's the hotel?
No, I'm not done yet. Please. Okay, we have one April 12th, 2003.
Make sure you speak into the mic.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. But anyway, I see that Mr. Now's here, and in his last meeting, he had said that he'd be helpful at any time to answer any questions or anything. As luck may have it, we had a little meeting amongst ourselves reviewing the presentation that Mr. Now made, and we have been advised to ask him what we feel to be pertinent questions. Are you willing to answer?
Well, I don't, that's not what public comment is about. Public comment's for you to make, it's not to interview an individual. If Mr. Now, and again, I say it with all respect, I'll take your comments. If Mr. Now would like to get up and speak after that,
fine.
we can do that, okay, Mr. Fink? Thank you.
As I said, we've been advised to ask these questions.
Sure.
At the September 6th meeting, when asked if you bought the property, you stated you were closing that Friday. It's been 6 weeks now. Have you closed on the property?
Mr. Fink, please direct to the committee.
Oh, I'm
You're
sorry.
directing
He's
to
not
us.
supposed to answer.
Thank you.
Also, I'd like to know, how did you find our township and this location? And you said you had approval in Jackson, but yet the mayor of Jackson stated to me otherwise. Jackson had always welcomed this planned and much hyped project that to this date has made no mention of any further intentions. I have met with Mr. Now several times over the years and offer my support behind his idea to build, but again, we have not seen or heard of any movement from him in a few years. For any further questions, I would refer to Six Flags Great Adventure, because that was the planned property site he was attempting to purchase that they said he never closed on. Their words, not mine. Hope this helps in some way. Have a great day. Okay, another question we were told to ask, have you received any word from the Pinelands regarding Trophy Park? You have stated Trophy Park is all for the kids, and yet you mentioned pro basketball, pro baseball, soccer, wrestling, etc. How is that all for the kids? You also stated you're completely sold out when will our township programs use the facilities as you stated? How can you be completely sold out? What teams have signed contracts with you, and what do you mean by letters of intent? At the last meeting, where our township girls track team was honored that night, the night of your presentation, you told them you'll have an indoor track for them, yet your plans show no indoor track. You mentioned teams throughout the world are coming. What teams would that be? And do you have contracts with them? You also stated Trophy Park offers stay and play. I'm assuming that means you'll be self-contained with everything a family would need. How do the merchants of Mace Landing feel about that? 1 million people from all over the world are coming to Trophy Park and our airport. What has to be done to our small airport to handle that many people? Letters of intent from companies that handle major sports throughout the world. What does that mean? You said you'll be able to keep traffic off of Wrangleboro Road. We'd like to know how. You figured a way not to sit in traffic. We'd also like to know how it would be. You stated you'll add multiple roads around the park to ease traffic flow. There were no rounds of around the park on your presentation. You've also stated you hooked up with Special Olympics and you have a lot of events with them. And that leads me back to being sold out. If you're sold out before you put a shovel in the ground, as you said, when will Special Olympics have the opportunity to use the facilities? And also, have you been in contact with Carmen Bannon? You stated you're building a 3,000-seat soccer stadium and a 3,000-seat baseball stadium, both of which are sold out. As far as the baseball stadium, that's going to be the home of a new minor league baseball team. What team will that be? What major league team are they affiliated with? Will it be A, AA, or AAA baseball? Are they under contract? Are you aware that we already have 2 minor league teams just north of here affiliated with the Yankees and Phillies? 2 teams east of here, west of here, both affiliated with the Phillies, and 1 team south of us in Delaware affiliated with the Washington Nationals. The average seating capacity in the minor leagues is 6,500 seats. Your stadium will hold 3,000 seats. What team would come here knowing they'll get half the revenue, even if you were sold out every game? And where do you expect to draw your fans from? I'm sure now that you've been told by Mayor Kane and us that there have been 3 deadly plane crashes in the middle of your project. Knowing that you might very well be putting many hundreds of people's lives at risk with the project, how does that make you feel about proceeding with Trophy Park? Thank you.
Mr. Pasecki, could we get the tape listened to, generate the questions for Mr. Now, so that he has the opportunity to see them in writing and put together what answers he feels are appropriate, okay? Thank you. You know what, if we don't have that on the record, I would prefer that actually, is that an extra copy? Can we have that?
You can have this.
Rita, could I have him enter that in with you as a document that'll, you don't mind that? That's, you read it, so it's a matter of public record now. Okay, young lady, please.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Alice Henry with Drosera. I wanted to go in first, say a special thanks to Ms. Link and Mr. Patali for coming out to examine the area. We really do appreciate it, so that way you can understand our concerns. I also would like to thank Ms. Hopkins for your comments today regarding Trophy Park with the thought to exclude pristine and undeveloped property. That's very much appreciated. I wanted to ask the committee if there have been any updates regarding Trophy Park that you are aware of.
None.
I am under the impression, based upon things that I found online, that they have already received their liquor license.
I know nothing about that. I know nothing about a liquor license transfer, and I pretty much know all the liquor licenses that are out there.
Okay. But I would like to keep abreast of any changes, so I would like to go and be aware of what's going on.
She speak up.
Could you just speak up just a little bit so we can...
I said I would like to stay abreast of any changes regarding Trophy Park moving forward, as this will directly impact myself as well as many other residents. So I'm trying to go and make sure that all the information I'm finding is correct and trying to get clarification.
Okay.
Again, I would like to point out that I feel that this is development and not redevelopment. The overlay zones that would have to be reclassified are in the interest of a sole developer to take, and that's going to take precedent over the interest of the community at large. And I feel like this sets a dangerous precedent for the committee. That's not what those overlays, when they were created, were designed for. So I would appreciate if the committee would take that under consideration while reviewing all these things. What would it take to stop the committee from rezoning areas that have trees in it that are considered pristine land? And Ms. Hopkins, you touched on that, and I do appreciate that, because it's not redevelopment. This is essentially development and developing properties, whereas the committee was supposed to be focused on redevelopment. I'm concerned that this is essentially going to turn into a carte blanche to determine if areas anywhere that have trees that are pristine property would be subject to be felled to other developments as well, besides just the one in my backyard. Also, concerns regarding possible eminent domain, because if this trophy park were to be placed in, as Mr. Fink was mentioning, we would have to go and have the roads widened to accommodate this huge amount of traffic. You would have to accommodate 1 to 2 million projected. That's bigger than our entire township here of people. So how far are they going to cut into all of our landowners' properties and seize? And in which case, we very well may fall under the 5 acres to live in an RD5, in which case this could also potentially lead to we either have to buy more property or we have to go and do all these other things to accommodate something that was not initially part of the redevelopment plan. So I feel like we'll also be paying for these decisions for decades to come, because with having so many more people than even our township projected every year, we're going to have to change our fire company, change our police force to accommodate this massive influx of people. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, listen, I think I made my thoughts on this entire process very clear. My job as chairman of this committee, as mayor of the town, when a developer approaches the town and that call is forwarded to me, my job is to take I enthusiastically sit with them and go over what the options may be. That's what my job is. And if we feel that there's merit to the application, we move forward with them. We turn them over to Ms. Crean and the redevelopment attorney if necessary. And then the process takes over. I want to be very clear. There's not a single member up here of committee by themselves that can do anything to change any type of zoning. And there is and I keep saying this, and I think Mr. Fink had a bunch of great questions, but all those questions will be vetted and answered as the process, if the process moves forward. As you just asked, has there been any new news? No, there has not. But as it moves forward, my job is to start the initial, and then it goes to planning and zoning representatives. And again, that's either going to be 7 or 9 members of your community that are going to make those decisions.
I'm just very concerned regarding this project. And
Of course, I understand that.
It's also concerning to me that the developer is purchasing this property knowing that it's currently listed as an RD5, which if it was developed as an RD5, we'd be looking at a maximum of about 60 homes to be placed in this area. 60 homes versus 3 giant hotels. I have massive concerns regarding whether or not that property will be able to support that without substantially impacting residents.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And I feel very worried from Mr. Now purchasing 220 million, I believe it was, from his presentation on developing a property that he's not sure about.
But you do understand that as a committee, if you wanted to purchase that property, I can't tell you no.
I
It's a
understand.
private piece of property that he's making a deal with the owners of the property to purchase it. Whether he gets his approvals, that's the risk that he takes.
I understand, but I just feel compelled to point it out. And I'm
Could
also.
you just speak up just a little bit? I just want to make sure you're
It's about-
captured on the record and everyone can hear you.
I said I feel compelled to point out my concerns.
Absolutely.
I think that's a warranted concern. I'm also concerned regarding the fact that we would just change this massive area of 268 acres. I don't really consider that like an overlay zone anymore. This is essentially, again, it's development. It's not, redevelopment. And that's what we are looking to do. I would also like to point out that we have started a petition as well. And currently we're at 445 signatures. And it's called the Protect Rural Zoning and the Pomona Woods Preserve in Mays Landing. Our Facebook group is currently at 493 members, and that's Preserve Rural Life in Hamilton Township, Atlantic County. And I would also very strongly urge the committee that please, can we stop developing and focus on redevelopment, which was the plan.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a tough one to follow, but I'll give my best shot. Again, Jim Link, 676 Park Road and 763 Park Road. First, I'd like to back up to the sports announcements. Philly's a great place. But there is something else that happened last week, which was a first, but it's of a thing that most people don't pay attention to. The Philadelphia Orchestra started its new series. It's a world-class orchestra, and just want to let everybody know that, hey, support the orchestra. In any case, we have, in my mind, we have a bit of a problem here, and this young lady just brought it up. When Art Schenker and his administration, you guys I think were part of it, brought the idea of having a catch-all kind of redevelopment ordinance, I thought to myself, wow, I was chair of the planning board for years before, and I thought, that's a great idea. Having to break down through a lot of the red tape, get things done so that the blighted areas in the township that met the 5 criteria for redevelopment would be easily done, and everybody would benefit. Well, the law concerns itself with words, and if I'm not right, please, point that out to me, Counselor, because what you're talking about, and the word that you brought up, Sue, and this young lady brought up, was pristine, undeveloped. Nothing's there. There's no infrastructure. There's no water. There's no electric. There's no anything to be redeveloped. So your intent is absolutely, of the application of the redevelopment ordinance, does not apply to this or any other similar plots of land in the township, because it needs no redevelopment, okay? And that's what I think everybody, or at least, well, I don't know about everybody. I know I'm concerned about it, because in the zoning, the master plan, and in the comprehensive management plan, they all say that applications must fit the area and the confines within the master plan itself and the comprehensive management plan. Neither one of which does this particular application, when I first saw it, fits anything like that, okay? As the young lady said, it's R5, 65 homes. If somebody wants to go in there and buy up all the lots that are there, and I think there's multiple lots involved, so you go to those owners, you buy that, and then you go to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and you apply for variances. Or, if you're going to put houses in there, you go to the planning board and you get your approvals. It's as simple as that. The planning board has been cut out of this entire process. And now it has come down to 3 people in the entire township who can say what or what might not go in any particular lot anywhere in this township. And I think that's an abomination. It should go back to the normal planning process so everybody gets the better say of what happens to the land in this township.
Mr. Link, as the former chair of the planning board, I will guarantee you one thing. It is not on this board's right now. It has to go through all the planning, the zoning, everything else. It's not up to three of us to vote on it right now. You should know that.
He knows that.
You know that.
I'm not going to argue.
Okay, you should know that as an ex-chair. It doesn't come to us. All we're doing is moving the process forward.
Who's the redevelopment authority? They're the ones who have the say.
Mr. Link, if you want to come back up to the
Back up to
microphone,
me.
Jim, you
Come back up to the mic.
All right, okay. From where I sit, now I've been on the planning board for a long time, so things may have flown by me in the interim, but it's a redevelopment authority that makes the determinations. And who appoints the redevelopment authority? You guys do. And of all the times that I've been involved in any kind of redevelopment authority, the redevelopment authority has always been the township committee. It hasn't been independent people. It's been township committee. So what does that mean? It's a majority. 3 people out of the 5 of you up there have a say in what goes on redevelopment. That's all.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody else?
Thank you for all the information tonight, and I appreciate everyone who got up and spoke, because it's difficult to speak about these things.
Of course.
Especially in the political climate we're in. We, appreciate all that you all are doing here, both parties, for all of us. But the job of this committee is to take care of us, not an outside developer who hasn't come in yet. I've been hearing a lot on the radio, WPG, Harry Hurley show, about this great thing that's going to happen. And then on the website, it says the Hamilton Township government will assist through the established economic development process. So it's out there, so it's within your sway and your influence because it's out there. So whether votes or anything has happened, it's already the public perception that this township committee is backing it. So that's a bad look for when we haven't gone through the process, that's all. We're just respectfully, I would request that it wouldn't be propagated into the press or on the airwaves that it's coming from our mayor or the committee. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Can I just answer one question? First of all, I do a radio show, and I enjoy it. I've been doing it for over 20 years. We talk about issues in Hamilton Township. I'm very clear to say I made sure that I do not advocate for any project. What I'm advocating for is the interest in I see our economic development policies working. We're starting to reap the benefits this year. We're going to continue to reap them as we move forward in the future. I'm excited at the fact that we brought in a potential $220 million investment. But that's the end of it. That does not happen unless it goes through the planning and/or zoning process. That's what I was advocating for. I'm always going to advocate for economic development. That's why we transferred our industrial commission to an economic development committee to help offset our residential taxes.
I appreciate that. I just came back up to the mic, so I'm not talking from back
Sure.
there. So there was more than 7,000 signatures against this project in Jackson. The resolution from that group was suggested to that individual to please develop in an area that was urban, not a rural area. So he moved from there to a rural area. Just kind of, if we read the news, right? it's
I
there for
appreciate
us.
that, yes. Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Thank you, Frank.
There's a lot of talk about this redevelopment zone, and my understanding is that the redevelopment zone can come with tax breaks, that there are potential tax breaks that are given to people that are bringing businesses to Hamilton Township. Is that accurate?
In any redevelopment project, there is the opportunity for credits and/or breaks. Yes, there is, sir.
And so, but not every property is going to get tax breaks or tax credits.
That is correct.
Is there any criteria as to who gets it and who doesn't get it?
We're not even anywhere close to that process.
So did Mike, the jerky guy, did he get any redevelopment tax credits?
I'm not going to talk on another individual application. What I can say is there's been no talk about any type of a redevelopment credit or break with this application.
that was, my question is in not just Trophy Park. My question is, any other properties, when they come to the planning board and say they want to make a restaurant, do they apply for tax credits? Are they given tax credits?
It's up to the applicant on the project on what they want to apply for. Some do, some don't. It's not, in other words, it's not automatically given. It's a request would have to be made, and then the merits of that request would be reviewed.
So is it explained to them that they can apply for these things?
Of course, and most of them know by the fact that Hamilton Township, as they see, is becoming much more business-friendly, they know that those opportunities exist, and that's what attracts them here to our town.
And so you have stated a couple times that you cannot direct someone where they shall put their...
Of course I cannot. It's not my property. It's not my decision.
But can you use your tax credits to say, if you go there, no tax credits. If you go there, tax credits.
I've been involved with many applications in this township, many redevelopment agreements that have coming to fruition or have not even, they get to that process and then they end. I do not have that discussion with anyone ahead of time.
Okay, but it's possible that that could be used, getting tax credits could be used to direct people to...
Well, let's be clear. I mean, part of the tax credits, there are situations where you do what's called a pilot program. And that still brings in the tax revenue for the town, but the county and the school district do not get their share, which means the township coffers get paid, and that it doesn't go to that. There's so many different ways that you could structure a deal, but again, as far as I'm aware of at this point, Mr. Now has not, we're not to that process. He has asked for absolutely nothing. I don't believe, and I have Ms. Crean shaking her head, there has been nothing asked for. We're not anywhere near that process yet. All right, thank you.
Can I go ahead? So this whole redevelopment, I've been reading this ordinance, and the way I read it, it doesn't go to zoning board. Am I correct in saying that? Anybody?
It would have to be reviewed by a board.
By the
Planning.
zoning board.
Planning.
It does not go to zoning, correct?
No, redevelopment does not go to zoning. It goes directly to the planning.
Just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. It does not go to zoning.
Yeah.
I might make a suggestion that maybe at the next meeting, we have Emily here and maybe go over the ordinance so that everybody understands what this ordinance says. It's very...
Emily will be in attendance of the November 14th committee meeting.
Good. All right, Ms. Sticks.
Tonight, I heard that the redevelopment agreement is being negotiated with the cotton mill. I heard the redevelopment agreement is being negotiated with Trophy Park. In the past, redevelopment agreements have been negotiated based on all the research I've been doing in the last 2 weeks, CarMax, and others, without naming them. My question is, at what time on the calendar has the Township Committee gone to an executive session so that all 5 equally elected at-large Township Committee persons get to have some idea of what is considered for negotiation into a redevelopment agreement? Or has there never been, has Mrs. Link been in an executive session to discuss with the 4 of you, or Mr. Vitale with the 4 of you, et cetera, when and where, and I still have my notes, Rita, from the October 2005 meeting in this room, attended by 3 committee people, when the process of redevelopment was explained to all who attended, bond council, state representatives, meaning from DCA, et cetera. So when does the whole Township Committee go to executive session to discuss, well, should we do this with the cotton mill, or we should do that, or we shouldn't do this? When does all 5 of you, duly elected, get equal input into any redevelopment agreement? That's my question.
Good question. Good question.
Ms. Dix,
I talk to everybody, not Ms. Dix.
Ms. Dix, you asked a question. I will address you if you don't mind, Ms. Dix. Ms. Dix, as far as us all getting together and discussing things, and it is done on a basis as needed. Those individuals that are required or need to be part of the process are part of the process. If it needs to be expanded, I believe we're going to have an executive session tonight, which we'll all be in. As it's needed, it gets done, Ms. Dix. There's no set time schedule for that.
So everyone understands that what Mr. Link was talking about, 3 people make decisions, 2 are excluded, because it's not necessary to go to an executive session after a meeting or call a special meeting 2 days from now to go have well, you could do it right here, with these professionals advising all of you, we should do a pilot, or we shouldn't do a pilot by Trophy Park, because that plane might crash. This is ridiculous. Voters, remember.
Thank you, Ms. Dix. Is there anyone else in the public that wishes to speak? Sir. How are you?
Hard to follow that, I apologize. So my name is Andrew Walgus. I'm the Executive Director of the Esports Innovation Center at Stockton University, and I'm also the owner of Atlantic City FC, which is a minor league soccer team in Atlantic City, although we play in Galloway, New Jersey at Stockton University. So everybody that brought up a million good issues, I am not in a position to be able to answer, but I did want to talk very passionately about youth sports and why I think Trophy Park is a game changer for this area in terms of the development of youth sports and a sports culture. Forgive me, because I'm obviously a little, very, very passionate about this subject. So when I came down here, I recognized that we have in Atlantic County a huge Hispanic population, and especially in Atlantic City proper and Pleasantville, the amount of organized youth soccer is basically non-existent. And in the greater community, you have parents that travel as far as an hour and a half to go to highly rated academy soccer places, because down here, although there are a lot of great programs, the level of competition is very minimal. So, it's been my mission since I've lived down here over 20 years to work on building a sports culture and identity. Atlantic City FC is the only minor league sports team representing this area, or the equivalent of single A soccer. So if you look at baseball, you have single A, double A, triple A, and then Major League Soccer. It's the same thing in minor league soccer. And in 5 years that we've existed, we've put 16 players into professional ranks. Our challenge has been facilities. Holding indoor training during winter is not possible. Holding camps, clinics, running tournaments, absolutely not possible. Hershey FC, which is in our conference, has the Hershey Cup every year. It attracts 400 teams to the area for these tournaments and basically sustains their youth soccer program. In addition to that, I've been the one leading the effort for minor league baseball's return to Atlantic City. I will tell you, we've made every effort to take advantage of existing facilities in the area. It has not come to fruition. So the fact that the minor league, and I can't talk about who it is because we're under NDA, contacted me and said, Mr. Now is doing this project, are you interested in speaking with him about revamping what you're bringing? When minor league baseball left Atlantic City, so did Little League. It hasn't come back. It's a big deal to have a team that kids can grow up rooting for here. And every effort that's happened with the surf and the bullies and everything that's been Atlantic City centered has had the same issues fail. So the fact that this is being brought to Atlantic County proper, I think everybody can understand why that's very powerful for families. And I have a 10-year-old little girl as well. And when I told her about this project, her mouth dropped and she was more excited than I've ever seen her in her life, because it's bringing gymnastics to the area, and it's the first time she would have the opportunity to compete in that type of thing locally. All the other issues you guys are going to face, and that you guys rightfully, it means something to your community. I get that completely. But I want you to know how important it is for this area to have a, and this is a real shot. I live in Egg Harbor Township.
Guys, let him.
And I will say this, in that situation, guys, I'm not part of this project that way. My job is to work on this minor league sports team. That's all I do. So I can't answer all of the questions, which are very valid questions, and I'm not a spokesperson for the project. I just wanted to give my 2 cents about what this means to me in terms of building a sports culture. My Apple Watch is telling me I'm nervous. That's literally beeping. I will yield, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew.
Please.
Alice from Drosera again. I wanted to see sort of points, sir, regarding your statement. There have been 9 targeted areas for redevelopment, and I feel like this would be a much more appropriate place to be zoned in one of the targeted areas, first of all. Secondly, regarding the facilities for esports and things like that, I'm very well aware of the fact that Stockton has 2 gaming labs, as well as the fact that there is currently a gaming lab in Atlantic City at Showboat Casino. And by putting more gaming labs that currently are not hitting capacity, I feel like that this would be a waste of space.
If I can point to that very specifically.
Sir, you have to come up so you're called on microphone, please.
I apologize about mentioning my title with esports because it has nothing to do with the project, so I just wanted to state that for the record with Stockton University. Showboat has 6 total spaces, 6 stations total. So the average esports tournament requires over 400 gaming stations just to even run and function. Stockton has 32. We might have a second 32 at the campus, but that's all that exists in the area. So it's not even close to enough to run anything.
I would also like to point out that DreamHack is held in Dallas, Texas, not down here in Atlantic City. And a more appropriate place would be where they actually can get air traffic to support this large influx. Atlantic City Airport does not support all these international flights. It does not support a ton of domestic flights even, as I've often traveled using Spirit Airlines myself because it's a wonderful thing. But again, you can't go everywhere. You can't bring everybody in. And the competitions, as I love to watch Rocket League, and I was proud that we took second in Worlds. But again, it's not going to be able to house all this. And to have the large state-of-the-art facility that Trophy Park would need to have, they would have to lose something else. You can't just build on top of build on top of build on top of build. It does not make sense. Again, I think that I'm not against Trophy Park. I'm against where you're choosing to do it. So I want to clarify that.
Well, thank man, I'm out here. I want to reiterate exactly what Al said. We are not against Trophy Park. We are against putting it where you want to put it. If you could find a place to put that, I'm sure it would be great for the township, but not in a pristine area. That's all I have to say.
Appreciate that.
Hi, Robin Joyce. I live in Hamilton Walk. Again, I will second the fact that we are not inherently against the development of Trophy Park, but at current time, we're talking about this going on a very, very busy road, and one that just a few short months ago, we were talking about building a church directly across from our neighborhood. And at that time, Mr. Cheek, during those meetings, referenced Wrangleboro being a county road. If you have issues with traffic concerns and the things like that, it's a county road. So essentially, not Hamilton Township's problem, so to speak. And yes, we get that. You do have to partner with the counties to go through all of these things. But with that being said, the approval came at that point to build this 56 or 58,000 square foot facility right there, right next to the expressway. So you're already creating this traffic breakdown, in my opinion, because they've done the traffic studies and things like that, but I will say that I don't feel as though that they're accurate. And then you're going to build this complex right down the road, right? And at that meeting, none of this was even mentioned that this was on the prospect, and maybe at the time it wasn't, but it was only a few short months ago, so I would find that hard to believe. But with all that being said, if the mindset is this is a county road, and we can't be responsible for the traffic flow that takes place on that road, even if it affects our direct residents, that gives me a mindset or an understanding of where someone's mindset is when they're making decisions on a committee where they're responsible for ultimate final approvals of projects like this. So again, it's not about this program, about this company coming in to build this institution. I think inherently it's an elite an ingenious idea. When I first heard of it, I was like, wow, that could be amazing. And then as I continued to read down and I understand that it was where it was going to be, I was absolutely, my mind was blown, and I really want to understand why this particular location. When there are what appear to be so many drawbacks, why is it that we have to pick that location? Mays Landing has so many areas that would be eligible or probably a much better fit for this type of program, where we're still drawing in that revenue, where we're still drawing in that attention and that support and tourists coming into our area. Why this location, and why are we doing it in such an awkward location when the response might inherently be, these are county roads. You're talking about Wrangleboro Road and then maybe even cutting through into Cologne. They're county roads, so then it becomes their problem, not Mays Landing's problem, not Hamilton Township's problem. And I think those are things that need to be thought about as we move forward in this process. You want to offer grants and tax breaks and tax incentives to him to go to another location in the town? I'm not necessarily against that. This location, I think, is a terrible idea. And it's to the point where if it were to move forward, my husband and I have already discussed, it's not something where we feel comfortable remaining in Mays Landing, and we'd put our house up for sale because we don't want to live in that particular environment when it's going to cause that much distress to our neighborhoods.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joya DiStefano. I'm also a member of Hamilton Walk. On top of everything else, my question tonight is, what is the plan for the racetrack? And is there any thought in place for preventing that same kind of unfinished dilapidation if Trophy Park doesn't work out? Thank you.
There you go.
So I think your question is, what would we do if Trophy Park built, failed, and became blighted like the racetrack?
Correct. And what is the plan, if any, for the racetrack?
Boy, you're asking a lot from a committee to see that far in the future. So I can't really answer you on Trophy Park.
Look at the racetrack, the future is here. I mean,
Well, and again,
we'd like to
the
prevent that
racetrack,
from
I've
happening.
heard over my 20 years with planning and zoning in the township, I've heard several different plans that have been proposed for the racetrack. Just like this is a plan. This is someone that went out, an entrepreneur went out and said, hey, I want to do this here. They've spent money and they come with an idea. If you look back at those plans, that should have 8 office buildings on it, should have a small racetrack on it, and possibly even slot machines. It didn't happen. We spent countless days, weeks, months, even years developing that plan, and then the developer couldn't get it done. So, I mean, as far as a private piece of property, we reach out to and we try to have discussions with the principals of the racetrack constantly. But it is their property, their taxes are current, there's only so much we can do. Thank you. Folks, is there anyone else in the public that wishes to speak? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public portion. Mr. Now, please.
Thank you, everybody. First of all, my name is Alan Naw, like in nautical. Okay. The reason I came tonight was because of the last meeting, when there was a lot of things that were brought up, and I didn't feel that they were quite true, so I thought I would come down and talk about them. And obviously, there was a lot more that came up tonight. But first of all, as far as Jackson's concerned, the mayor there, his name is Boss Hogg. He is not somebody that I got along with the whole time. He was fighting me every step of the way. He had a friend of his, who he calls his brother from another mother, who wanted to do a project between my project and 195. This is where all the traffic goes. It's a small one-lane bridge that crosses 195. He's putting in he changed all of the zoning for him. He's putting in 2 1 million square foot warehouses and 1,000 apartments. The traffic to get to where I'm at would have been ridiculous. So another problem was Six Flags is falling apart. It doesn't work there for years. They just had 19 people get hurt. They're just, it's falling apart. They're down to, I believe it's 38% of what their volume used to be. And the CEO of Six Flags was interviewed by Yahoo Finance, and they said, what is the reason that you're down so much? And he said, because of unruly kids. We can't control it. So now I'm not going to send my athletes to Trophy Park where there's all this violence going on. So now, because of the pandemic, we kind of sat still because we didn't know what was going to happen. And over that 2-year period, we realized that's not the place to put all these kids that are coming because of problems that I mentioned. And I looked all over the place for property. I looked at the racetrack. The racetrack isn't for sale, number one. It's too small for what I need to do, and it's a very, very costly, and I've talked to their attorney, pollution problem there. All those buildings have asbestos in them, they all gotta be knocked down. I'm guessing $30 to $40 million to do all that. Plus you gotta buy the property. Their attorney agreed with me. Bader Field, somebody mentioned Bader Field. Bader Field is too small, it goes underwater, and there's only one road that's in and out of there. When I came to you guys and asked you about this piece of property that was there, and obviously that's how we started getting involved with our redevelopment plan, I went unofficially to the county planning board and the county engineer, because the roads are county roads on one side, and on the other side it also is. I went to the redevelopment committee meeting, and they're the ones that had suggested me going out on that paper street to the other road so that there would be more traffic. Now, I know that there's a lot of hoops that we gotta jump through, and I'm prepared to do that. I think this project is something that this town needs. Now, we're not gonna put one kid in the school. We're gonna have our own security. We're gonna help with the fire departments. Either we'll have our own fire truck, or we'll work with you guys. Maybe we'll even buy a fire truck. We haven't figured that part out yet. But when we were in Jackson, we were gonna build a firehouse and donate it to the town. I think I had mentioned that to you, and you said you had enough firehouses, you just need fire trucks.
I think, and I said fire trucks, and I said if it moves further, when we get to that point, I believe my comments to you were, we should consider investing in Cologne, which was nearby, as opposed to an additional facility.
That's correct.
And you were very receptive to that.
Yes, I was. Safety is our main factor with everything. We want to be safe. Thought about the one guy brought up tonight, he brought up another time about the airplane crashes. According to what I've seen is, there was one fatal crash near the proposed property, which was in 1988. And that came right from the federal government. The findings said that 1 mile northwest of the airport, with no specific findings showing that it was actually on the proposed property. Now, they're saying there was 4 on there. I don't know if they were. I went back to 1982. The planes that are made today and the safety regulations and everything, from everything that I can see since 1982, there's been no problem there. Now, everybody lives in that area with their families, and they don't feel that they're not safe with their families there. So all these kids that'll be there is like my family. I feel they'll be safe there. There hasn't been anything since 1982, and that doesn't even say it was on the property. But I'll go back and research more and see what I can find. Somebody had asked about the FAA and the heights of the buildings. We have talked to the FAA. We have to have drawings and everything before we go back to them and that. But as long as we're under 200 foot, it's not a problem. Our tallest building is 70 foot. So we know we're not going to have a problem with that. Somebody brought up the fact about the roads that we're putting in, how much it's going to cost the town. We're paying for all that. You guys aren't paying for a thing. Right? When we were at the county agreed with what we were doing to take the traffic, because I'm always concerned about that, to get the traffic off of the main roads and onto our property. That's why we have the side of the property a 4-lane road. The county, when we were talking to them, they were concerned about being the speedway. So when we talked to them, we said that we would put in speed bumps and stop signs at our entrances and that would keep down the speeds. So they were fine with that. It was the lawyer, not a lawyer, I'm sorry, it was a doctor you had here. And he was saying about, you know, if you cut down trees, kids are going to be doing drugs.
Okay.
I lived at the beach. I have 4 children. I have never had a problem with one of my children. They're all grown up and they're all adults now. And my one daughter was a national champion with quarter horse. My other daughter was Rookie of the Year for ABBA powerboat racing. And between my 2 sons, they have 4 state championship rings in sports and 1 D1 ring. We didn't have a tree around us. They didn't get into drugs or anything because they were busy with the sports. They were out there doing things. I think that what we are doing is it teaches the kids responsibility. It teaches them competition for life. It teaches them to deal with other children from all over the world, basically. So it's an education for them. We're going to have camps there for training. You know, we're going to make the place very accessible to the local teams, especially in the wintertime because we have a big indoor facility. I don't see how we're going to hurt anybody. We're going to be paying probably in a range of $2.5 to $3 million a year in taxes. And we're not going to put 1 kid in school. You know, you're not going to send a garbage truck out to us. You're not going to do anything, right? Like I said, with the first aid and the fire departments, we'll help with it because we need them. As far as the zoning, if you take the RD5 Rural Development Zone, permitted uses include agricultural, forestry, home occupation, parks, playgrounds, schools, places of worship, clustered residential development, 1 unit per 5 acres, and single-family residential use. A cluster provision allows for the lots to be no more than 1.1 acre and no smaller than 1 acre in size. So we're doing playgrounds, we're doing a park, we're doing schools, so we're halfway there with the, what they're saying.
Guys, Mr. Now has the floor. Thank you.
Pardon?
I'm just letting you know that you have the floor still.
So I mean, it's not just for 5-acre homes. That property sat there empty for a long time. Nobody wanted to buy it. Because, and I've talked to developers that are even in this area, and they know that place has been for sale. They didn't buy it. They don't want to put houses there because of the airplanes, the noise in there. If you put it on 5 acres, what you'd have to sell the house for, you just couldn't, you'd lose money on it. Where this building is, where your house is, the road you took to get here, the schools your children go to, the church you go to, I don't care what it is, that all used to be woods. In order to have progress, in order for a town to flourish, you have to bring more money in. And that's why you have an economic development committee, and that's why you're paying on the screen here to develop this stuff. So if you come in here and you are going to get knocked down, everybody else is going to look at it and say, why would we bother coming here? Right?
I've tried to make that point, Mr. Now, and I think, you know, my job again,
Well, I
you
understand
call,
what your
my
job
job
is.
is to talk to you and do what I can to get you through the
I
process.
understand that, very much I understand that. The amount of processes that we have to go through to build this project is very extensive and very expensive. And I am going to be investing the money into that. We've already started with the things that we're allowed to get started on to get it to happen. So as far as somebody had mentioned our LOIs and all that stuff like that, very hard to get somebody to do a contract when you don't have a place that you're going to do it in. So all those LOIs are coming. They need a place to go. They need a place in the Northeast. There is no place to have anything like this. This will put Hamilton on the map. Now, just because that everybody had this 268 acres there for their own personal use in that, I own it. I have to do something with that land, and this is what I want to do with it. I'm not doing it to make money. It does make money, but I want to have a legacy for my family. And that's why I want to build this. I have a very sports-oriented family. This is something that's been needed. So I want to be the Walt Disney of these youth sports world. Basically, that's it. I will follow all the rules and regulations. I will follow everything that needs to be done to make sure it's done properly. Somebody had mentioned about the buffer zones. This property is half a mile wide and a mile deep. We are planning on having big buffer zones there. We want to be a good neighbor. I'm going to put something there. This is what I really want to put there. And I just can't leave the property to sit there. It will be landscaped. I mean, we're going to be as green as we could possibly be. Our carbons are going to be way down with that. I'm not sure we're going to be able to be 100% green, but we're going to be pretty close to it. As far as all those questions, I mean, I don't see why really it's anybody's business. You know, what I'm doing is, if I'm building it and I'm putting out $220 million to build it, whether I have this team come or that team come, it shouldn't be anybody's business.
Mr. Now, I'll say the same. I mean, we know we have a long process to go through with this.
I agree with you 100%.
And again, as mayor, I want to thank you for considering the investment in Hamilton Township and doing what you've done. Again, as I've said to the public, we're going to let this process take the process that it takes.
That's all that I want, is just to take the process. And if there's problems as we go along, we will try to correct them. If we can't correct them and it can't be, it can't be.
Exactly.
But I just want, I am allowed to have this chance to go forward with this and try to make something happen for the town. There's over 300 full-time jobs and 1,000 part-time jobs. I've talked to the colleges. They're all looking forward to it. The Atlantic Cape Community College, that's a big culinary school. They have a place to put kids to learn them to come to our place. The town does not have a hotel in it. There's going to be 3 hotels with 600 rooms in it. So I mean, like, there's so many benefits for it. I mean, I really am, I feel bad that the neighbors, and I understand it because they've had it for years and years and years, but things progress, life changes. So, you know, I am going to keep going forward. I am going to make everything that I can the right way. You know, I'm sure a lot of people aren't going to be happy with that, but we're going to make it happen. Mr. Vitale had said to me, said to me at the meeting about going to the racetrack, and I explained to them I couldn't do that, and, you know, but whatever. But then I've heard from other people that you were going to convince me to go to the park.
I don't know who told you that.
But I mean, it's still, you voted for it, and I really appreciate your vote to let us go through the process, right? So, I mean, I think that all 5 of you up there want to do the best for the town. Right? So let's go through the process, and let's see what happens at the end of it, and see what comes out of it.
That's what I've been asking all along, Mr. Now.
And that's, I'm asking the same thing. I'm the one putting out the money for it. It's not costing the town anything. And let's just follow it through and see where it goes. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Well, now, I have a question for you. So if our development team, if our administrator, if Aaron Crane, you said yourself, and the racetrack said there's contamination there. There may be, I don't know what the contamination could possibly be. There's asbestos possibly, whatever. I would like to think that there's programs out there from the government to help clean these things up.
Well, that was just one of the main things. One of the other problems is, and I had my traffic people looked at it because Joe had asked me to please look at that property. I talked to the people there. You actually gave me the phone number even to get a hold of it. And I had my traffic engineer look at it. and our traffic doesn't work there. Because of the mall, because of all the places behind it, we would just cause confusion there with the traffic. When we go to put it where it's at now, right, there's gonna be a whole traffic plan. That takes, it's cost a lot of money to do that, but it'll be exactly, you know, what it is now. There's gonna be 2 million people in and out of there a year, but they're not coming the same day. That's throughout the whole year. A lot of them come on buses and stuff like that, so but there'll be a whole traffic plan that you'll be able to see everything. But before I even did the traffic plan, I went to the county. And matter of fact, Aaron, you were at the meeting with me there. And we explained everything that we wanted to do. The planning board was there, they were there. They said, this will work fine. But they also said, we'll see it when you bring your traffic plan in. But we know it'll work. So I'm sure, and I appreciate that you want to try to do the tracking. I don't blame you. I think that's something that, it's just not big enough, number one. And I can't afford to spend $30 to $40 million knocking all that stuff down and going through the programs. Besides, they don't want to sell it. So they said they've had offers, they don't want to sell it. But he did listen to me because he promised Joe that he would talk to me. So, I mean, I did try. And like I said before, I appreciate that everybody is giving me the chance to go through the process to see if we can get this done. I want to be a good neighbor. I want to be part of this town. I'm looking for a house in this town. I want to move here. I'm going to be part of this. So I'm not going to put something here that's going to make me look bad or make the town look bad. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Mr. Rogers, please.
Good evening. Harry Rogers, 1069 Morningside Drive. 2 points. First of all, I have no opinion on the Trophy Park. I'm a member of the planning board, and I don't have that luxury until I sit on the board and see the presentation. I do take objection to Mr. Link's willful ignorance of our process here in Township. He has sat on committee. He misrepresented the process tonight, and I think that needs to be corrected. Last question. When do we start work on the dam? It's been awarded. When do we start work on the dam, Mr. Mayor? Thank you.
I would have to defer. Joe?
I think the last thing is in the hands of the county, and they are working on current contracts and starting the pre-construction meetings for that. That was the last word that I got. I'm sorry. Yeah, so that contract is definitely with the county, so county is working on the pre-construction meeting and the contracts with that.
Mr. Rogers, they are the lead agency, and I guess they make the final decision?
Yes, they will.
Correct in that? Yes.
Yeah, they get a recommendation from the dam committee, but the final award goes from the county.
Do they have a timeline for that?
I don't believe the last meeting we had, they even discussed the timeline, but I know they want to get moving with it. So the last meeting we had, the contracts were out and being prepared, and I think they were in the hands of the contractor, I believe. We have another meeting coming up Monday. I could further update you on that after that meeting.
Please. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public that wishes to speak? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public portion.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, folks, I believe we will be going into executive session this evening. Will we be coming out to report? We will not be coming back out of executive session. Thank you for your participation.
You guys are going to take the seats, aren't you? Yeah. Start without me.
Hi. Yes. So you work with Sherry.
autistic kids, and I wanted to get out.
Thank you.
Anything behind there, or is it still under
It's under permit review. But I heard it was going to be executive review, so it might go quicker than, because it was something that they already applied for, and then they just never did anything.
We'll see you.
Joe, see ya.
Taken, I will request an adjournment of the meeting, please. Motion. I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned. Whew.